Working security at a decommissioned hospital sounds like the setup for a cliché horror movie. But for me, it was just a paycheck. The place had been shut down for about 5 years. A sprawling complex of concrete and glass that sat on the edge of town like a tombstones. My job was simple. Sit in the booth, watch the monitors, do a round every 2 hours, and make sure no copper thieves or adventurous teenagers got in. It was boring, solitary work. Exactly how I liked it. Or at least, how I thought I liked it. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, the deadest part of the night. The silence in the booth was thick, broken only by the hum of the monitors and the occasional crackle of static from my radio, even though there was no one on the other end. I was staring at the grid of 12 screens, each showing a different grainy black and white view of the empty corridors and patient rooms. Camera 4 covered the old pediatric ward on the 3rd floor. It was always the creepiest part of the building. Murals of smiling animals peeling off the walls, abandoned toys scattered like debris after a storm. I was sipping my lukewarm coffee when I saw it. A flicker of movement on camera 4. It was subtle, just a shift in the shadows near the nurse's station. I leaned in, squinting at the screen. The motion sensors hadn't tripped, which was odd. They were sensitive enough to pick up a moth flying too close. I rewound the feed 10 seconds. There. A dark shape, roughly human-sized, gliding from the hallway into room 302. It didn't walk. It flowed, like ink spilled in water. My heart started a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. Protocol dictated I go check it out. I grabbed my flashlight and the heavy mag light I used more for comfort than illumination. Leaving the safety of the booth felt like stepping out of an airlock into deep space. The air in the main lobby was stale, smelling of old dust and industrial cleaner. My footsteps echoed too loudly on the linoleum as I made my way to the elevators. Of course, they were out of service, so I had to take the stairs. The stairwell was a vertical tunnel of concrete, cold and damp. Every creak of the building sounded like a footstep. By the time I reached the 3rd floor, I was sweating despite the chill. I pushed open the heavy fire door, and the silence of the pediatric ward hit me. It wasn't just quiet, it was heavy, oppressive. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating the peeling paint and the dusty floor. "Hello? Security?" I called out. My voice sounded thin and pathetic. No answer. I walked slowly down the corridor, shining my light into the rooms as I passed. Empty beds, overturned chairs. Room 302 was at the end of the hall. The door was ajar. I approached it with the kind of dread usually reserved for nightmares. I kicked the door open and swept the room with my light. Nothing. Just an empty bed frame and a broken bedside table. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Maybe it was a glitch in the camera, a trick of the light. I turned to leave, and that's when I heard it. A soft, wet sound, like a bare foot peeling off a sticky floor. It came from the bathroom attached to the room. I froze. The bathroom door was closed. I gripped the mag light tighter, my knuckles white. "Come out," I said, trying to sound authoritative. "Police are on the way." A lie, of course. The handle of the bathroom door slowly turned. It was rusted and stiff, grinding metal against metal. The door creaked open an inch. Darkness spilled out. I shone my light at the gap. For a second, I saw nothing. Then, low to the ground, a face appeared. It was pale, impossibly pale, with eyes that reflected the light like a cat's. But the worst part was the smile. It was too wide, stretching the skin until it looked like it might tear. I didn't think. I ran. I sprinted down the hallway, bursting through the stairwell door and taking the steps 3 at a time. I didn't look back, but I could hear it behind me, a fast, scuttling sound like a large insect. I crashed into the security booth and locked the door, my hands shaking so bad I dropped my keys. I looked at the monitors. Camera 4 was static. Camera 3, the stairwell, was static. Camera 1, the lobby. There was nothing in the lobby. I slumped into my chair, gasping for air. I reached for the phone to call the cops, but then I looked at the monitor for the booth itself. The camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling behind me. On the screen, I saw myself sitting in the chair, and standing directly behind me in the blind spot of the room was a tall, dark figure. Its hand was resting gently on the back of my chair, inches from my neck. I spun around. The booth was empty. I looked back at the screen. The figure was gone. But on the glass of the booth window on the inside was a single greasy handprint. It was slowly fading, as if the heat that made it was dissipating. I quit the next morning. They never found anyone in the building. But sometimes, late at night in my new apartment, I hear that wet, sticky sound coming from my own bathroom. I worked the graveyard shift at a suicide prevention hotline for 3 years. You develop a thick skin in that line of work. You hear heartbreak, desperation, and terror every single night. You learn to detach, to be the calm voice in the storm. But there was one call that pierced right through my armor, a call that still makes me check the locks on my doors 3 times before bed. It was a slow night, around 3:30 a.m. The rain was lashing against the windows of the call center, a rhythmic drumming that usually made me sleepy. Most of the other volunteers were dozing or reading. My phone blinked. Line 3. I put on my headset and clicked answer. "This is the crisis line. My name is Sarah." "I'm here to listen," I said, my voice practiced and steady. Silence. Just the sound of heavy, ragged breathing. It sounded wet, gurgling. "Hello? I'm here," I repeated gently. "She's watching me," a voice rasped. It was a man, his voice trembling so violently it was hard to understand. "Who is watching you?" I asked, grabbing my notepad. "Standard procedure. Keep them talking, get details, assess the threat." "The woman in the corner," he whispered. "She has no face." I felt a chill ripple down my spine. It wasn't the words themselves. We get a lot of callers experiencing hallucinations or psychosis, but the sheer, unadulterated terror in his tone. This didn't sound like a delusion. It sounded like a man describing a tiger in his living room. "Are you safe right now? Are you alone?" I asked. "I'm in my bedroom," he said, his voice barely audible. "I locked the door, but she just walked through it. She's standing in the corner. Just standing there, her dress is wet." I could hear the rain in the background of his call, echoing the rain against my own window. "Sir, I want you to focus on my voice. Can you tell me your name?" "David," he choked out. "Oh God, she's moving." I heard a rustling sound like stiff fabric rubbing together. "David, stay with me. What is she doing?" "She's pointing," he whimpered. "She's pointing at the phone." My stomach dropped. "At the phone?" "David, do you have any weapons in the room? Anything you can use to protect yourself?" No. She's coming closer. She's so tall. Her arms are too long." The breathing on the line became frantic, hyperventilating. I was signaling my supervisor, waving my hand frantically, but he was on another call. I was alone with David. "David, listen to me. I can call the police for you. I can trace this call. Do you want me to do that?" "It won't matter," he said, his voice suddenly going flat, devoid of emotion. "She's right here. She wants to talk to you." The line went dead silent. No breathing, no rustling, just dead air. "David." I pressed the headset to my ear. "David, are you there?" Then a new voice spoke. It wasn't David. It was a sound that shouldn't have been possible, like grinding stones and rushing water trying to mimic human speech. "Sarah?" I threw the headset off my head, scrambling back in my chair. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard it hurt. My supervisor, Mike, finally looked over, startled by my movement. He ran over. "What is it? What happened?" I pointed at the phone, shaking. "Line 3. Something else." Mike put on his headset and listened. He frowned, tapping the keys. "Sarah, line 3 is disconnected. The call log says it ended 2 minutes ago." "No," I insisted. "I was just talking to him. And then something spoke to me. It knew my name." Mike looked at me with concern, clearly thinking the stress was getting to me. He played back the recording of the call. We listened together. We heard me. "This is the crisis line. My name is Sarah. I'm here to listen." Then, silence. Me again. "Hello, I'm here." Silence. "Me? Who is watching you?" On the recording, there was no David, no heavy breathing, just me talking to dead air for 3 minutes. I listened to myself getting more and more panicked, responding to a voice that wasn't there. "See?" Mike said gently. It was a prank call, or maybe a glitch. There was no one on the line. But he was wrong. Because at the very end of the recording, right before the line cut, under the layer of static, there was a sound. It was faint. So faint Mike didn't catch it, but I heard it. A wet, guttural whisper, right in the microphone. "See you soon, Sarah." I haven't gone back to the center. I changed my number. I moved to a different city, but on rainy nights when the wind howls against the glass, I unplug my phone. Because sometimes, just sometimes, it rings anyway. And I know who is on the other end. I was the night auditor at a historic hotel in downtown New Orleans. The place was beautiful in the daylight, high ceilings, velvet drapes, crystal chandeliers. But at night, when the guests were asleep and the lights were dimmed, it felt like a mausoleum. The hotel had a reputation, as most old places in New Orleans do. Guests would complain about footsteps in the hallway, cold spots in the rooms, the usual stuff. I never paid it much mind. I was a skeptic. I believed in bad plumbing and drafty windows, not ghosts. My shift was usually quiet. Run the financial reports, check in the late arrivals, drink too much coffee. The front desk was situated in the center of the lobby, a massive island of mahogany. Behind me was the key rack, an antique grid of brass hooks that we still used for the aesthetic, even though we had key cards now. It was 3 a.m. on a humid July night. The lobby was empty. The only sound was the hum of the air conditioning and the rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock near the entrance. I was balancing the accounts on the computer when I heard a distinct clink behind me. I turned around. One of the heavy brass keys, room 412, was swinging on its hook. Back and forth, clink, clink. I stared at it. There was no draft. The air was still. I stood up and walked over to the rack. I reached out to steady the key. The metal was ice cold, so cold it burned my fingertips. As soon as I stopped it, The key next to it, room 414, started swinging, then 416, then 418. One by one, in a perfect line, the keys began to sway. "Okay," I muttered to myself. "Very funny." I looked around the lobby expecting to see a prankster, maybe a guest messing with wires or magnets, but the lobby was deserted. Then the phone rang. The shrill sound made me jump. I grabbed the receiver. "Front desk, this is Elias." "Room 412, a woman's voice said. She sounded elegant, refined, but distant, like she was speaking through a long tunnel. "I'd like a wake-up call, please." I looked at the computer. Room 412 was vacant. It had been vacant for a week and due to a plumbing issue. "Ma'am, I show that room as unoccupied. Are you sure you have the right room number?" "Room 412, she repeated, her voice sharper. 6 a.m., don't be late." The line clicked dead. I hung up, feeling a cold knot in my stomach. I decided to go up there. Maybe a squatter had gotten in or there was a system error. I took the master key card and headed to the elevator. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, the air was different. It smelled of lavender and something metallic, like old pennies. The hallway was dimly lit. I walked down to room 412. The Do Not Disturb sign was hanging on the knob, swaying slightly as if a breeze had just passed. I swiped the master key. The light turned green. I pushed the door open. "Hello? Front desk." The room was pitch black. I fumbled for the light switch, but it didn't work. I pulled out my phone and used the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. The room was perfectly made up. The bed was crisp, the pillows fluffed. But in the center of the bed sat a woman. She was facing away from me, wearing a long, white dress that looked like it belonged in another century. Her hair was dark and matted, hanging down her back. "Ma'am," I said, my voice trembling, "you're not supposed to be in here." She didn't move. She didn't breathe. "I need you to come downstairs with me," I said, taking a tentative step forward. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, she began to turn her head. I heard the crack of vertebrae, a dry, snapping sound. She turned her head too far, past her shoulder, past her back. Her neck twisted like a wrung towel until she was looking at me while